Welcome to Meet the Press Now. I'm Kelly O'Donnell in Washington, where President Trump is once again escalating his fight with Harvard, the nation's oldest, wealthiest, and most esteemed university, not to mention the alma mater of 8 American presidents. Mr. Trump now seeking to cut off all federal contracts with the Ivy League school, which he has maligned as a threat to democracy. NBC News has obtained a copy of a letter sent by the General Services Administration to all federal agencies, encouraging them to seek alternative vendors for future services where you had previously considered Harvard. The news comes a day after the president warned on social media that he was considering taking $3 billion of federal grant money from Harvard and giving it to trade schools, despite the reality that some of those funds are congressionally authorized for medical and scientific research, not the work of trade schools. Harvard's president says the Trump administration's ongoing attacks on his university could have serious and long-term effects on all Americans.
I would say that the federal government has the authority through the budgeting process to reallocate funds. But the question to ask is, what problem is he trying to solve by doing that? The money that goes to research universities in the form of grants and contracts, which is almost all of the federal support that we get, is used to pay for work that we perform at the behest of the government. I'm less concerned about whether it goes to a trade school or if it goes to some other project, like working on highways. What the real question is, how much value does the federal government get from its expenditures on research? There is a lot of actual research demonstrating the returns to the American people have been enormous.
Today's move is the latest in a 6-week onslaught of actions the White House has taken against Harvard, while accusing it of liberal bias, discriminatory admissions policies, and anti-Semitism. Harvard has forcefully pushed back, including with a pair of lawsuits, challenging the administration's funding cuts and its move to revoke the university's ability to enroll or keep its international students, which a federal judge on Friday temporarily blocked. Joining me now is NBC News White House correspondent Vaughn Hillyard. And Vaughn, tell us about this letter. Sometimes things come in these very simple packages that give a lot of information. So a letter sent by the Trump administration to federal agencies lays out these changes. What does it tell us?
Right, and this is just the latest letter here, as Garber lays out on behalf of Harvard, the argument that these are federally funded and backed research efforts that are in the federal government's interest. Essentially, the university is a research institution that is there to benefit the federal government's efforts. And that is where, in this latest letter here from the General Services Administration this morning that went out to the hundreds of federal government agencies, it makes clear that the federal government is requesting that these agencies turn to different partners, different contractors, rather than previous relationships that they had existing with Harvard. That amounts, one senior administration official tells NBC News, to an estimated $100 million. Of course, this comes after a freeze and a holdup of more than $2 billion in other research and grant funds from the federal government to Harvard. So this is the latest effort to squeeze Harvard through the desires of this White House.
Do you have a sense in practical terms what that would look like when you consider how the White House is casting its actions against Harvard? What do we think the end game is here?
This is an all-out effort to make Harvard an example. Let's be clear here, Kelly. We have seen efforts by this White House to force Columbia University, for instance, to capitulate to some of their demands. And we have seen the other universities acquiesce to the demands when it comes to, for example, the admittance and hiring practices of students and faculty. And that is where you see Harvard and their president, Alan Garber, making the case that Harvard needs to stand firm. What are the ultimate consequences? Well, we see over the last 2 months, the administration continuing to find new ways to try to squeeze the institution. The Department of Education, for example, has suggested that their tax-exempt status is going to be reviewed, and the president himself has urged the IRS to revoke their tax-exempt status. So this White House has given them an off-ramp, if you will, but Harvard continuing to hold firm that they will not back down to the demands of this White House.
And they've been ratcheting that up. When you look at another related area is that the administration has stopped all interviews for international students seeking visas to come and study in the United States and to expand the screening of applicants to include their social media accounts. Certainly, the government does that screening. Obviously, Harvard has its own list of students. What do we know about this pause and the impact it could have?
Right. And that's where, again, Harvard is sort of this example university, example college here. Just last week, the Trump administration told them that they were no longer going to be allowed through the Department of Homeland Security to have any international students. And those that were already there needed to look to another university. The federal court stepped in and placed an injunction on that effort by this administration. But fast forward to today, an internal cable sent by Secretary Marco Rubio and reviewed by NBC News indicates that this White House, through the Secretary of State, is ordering all consulates and embassies to immediately freeze any future interviews with potential foreign students that are seeking visas to study here inside of the United States, not just for Harvard, but for any college and university. It is not clear when that they will begin that interview process again. But the reason for this pause, Kelly, is that the State Department is indicating that they intend to review the social media accounts more aggressively of these students that are seeking to study inside of the U.S.
And, of course, free speech comes into play there. Vaughn, thank you so much. We'll be following this. And joining me now is Arne Duncan, who served as the Education Secretary under President Obama. He's also a Harvard graduate. I'm sure you have a lot of thoughts on all of this. Secretary Duncan, what do you think the federal funding that is at stake here means to everyday citizens who might never visit Harvard, might not have any chance to study at Harvard, but are affected by what Harvard produces as a research institution? What's at stake?
That's exactly the right question. And this is the opposite of making, it's the opposite of making America great again. When you attack research, you hurt all of us. When you attack foreign students and deprive our country of the best and the brightest from around the world, we lose their creativity. We lose their ability to find cures for cancer. We lose their ability to create jobs and open businesses. And so this is what Trump is doing, is he's challenging America. He's hurting America. And it's a tough analogy, but the best analogy I can think of is when a husband beats his wife and then says, well, I still love you. You don't listen to words, you watch the actions. What Trump is doing is he's beating America. He's abusing America. He can say, make America great again. He's doing exactly the opposite. We have to watch his actions, not just listen to his words.
That is a colorful metaphor you painted there, but I'm going to move on. President Trump has implied that he might take billions of dollars that is directed toward Harvard and give that to trade schools. Now, we've seen an emphasis, certainly in recent years, on trade schools and non-college bound opportunities. And so that is certainly something that is gaining some traction. But when you talk about taking money from the science and the medical research and some of the innovations, how would that work? This is money that's appropriated by Congress. Can he simply pull money from Harvard and give it to trade schools? And what would that mean?
Well, first of all, again, I just want to sort of stop. You have to recognize just how mind-boggling crazy this is. We've never seen anything like this. Any president, any time from any party just attack a university like this. And Trump is terrified of Harvard for good reason. It's a place of truth. It's a place of knowledge. It's a place where he feels inferior. So we get it. But as you said, the federal budget is not his personal piggy bank. This is money appropriated by Congress. We should fund academic research. We should try and get scientific breakthroughs and discoveries. And we should fund trade schools and fund vocational training and give people a path to a great career. He cannot take money from one place just to pay somebody else. It's not a personal piggy bank. That's not how the federal budget works. And again, we're seeing the courts, thank goodness, the courts stop him time and time and time again. But unfortunately, he has an administration that just acquiesces and does what he says. He has a Congress that so far, folks on the Republican side have refused to check what is just egregious, abuses of power. And so right now, our only hope today, I hope this changes, but our only hope is the courts. And he's starting to lose in public opinion. The public is catching on to this. And at some point, he may pay a price for it politically. That hasn't quite happened yet.
President Trump has been laying out some of his complaints about Harvard. And the university's president, Alan Garber, does acknowledge that the school has had real free speech concerns and problems and things they're trying to grapple with. Let's listen to what he had to say.
We think it's a real problem if, particularly at research universities, students don't feel free to speak their minds. When faculty feel that they have to think twice before they talk about the subjects that they're teaching, that's a real problem that we need to address. And it's particularly concerning when people who have views that they think are unpopular, and the administration and others have said conservatives are too few on campus and their views are not welcome.
As we wrap up here, you have experience as an education secretary giving advice to these institutions. What would you say about how they can best address that reality, that they recognize there are some issues on campus where they'd like to see an expansion of free speech and tolerance and so forth?
Yeah, well, no university in America is perfect, and Harvard will never be perfect. And every university every day is trying to get better and create that environment. Again, that's we're all trying to get better. There's no perfection in this. The goal is always progress. What's unprecedented is a U.S. president trying to attack a university that actually terrifies him. And we've never seen anything like this. That's what has to change. Harvard will continue to get better. Harvard will always be extraordinary, but there's always room for improvement. What has to change is the behavior of a president that is absolutely out of control.
So appreciate your time today, Arne Duncan, former Secretary of Education. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.